Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the 9 o'clock acceleration call. You know, excuse me, sorry. I'm tired of coughing in your ear. I apologize for that. You know, these calls, we like to obviously cover a lot of different ground, and we love the interaction. You guys that bring stuff to this call, I got to tell you, is like the best stuff I think anyone can possibly hear and go through, and we really appreciate that. And, we were talking this morning about, this is, I think as far as sales goes, this is probably one of the most interesting sales jobs I've ever had, because there's a fair amount of moving parts to it. There's a lot of stuff going on. And when you look at the sales process in here, what we've seen a lot of lately because of, and I think we see this more now because a lot more merchants are upgrading their equipment because EMV's coming. And we had a scenario come the other day where guy got the paperwork from the merchant, and an agent did, and was holding on to the paperwork, and the agent director was calling him, what's going on? It's like, oh, I've had the paperwork for, 3 or 4 days because the merchant's trying to decide if they want to lease or buy the equipment. And we're like, well, get the paperwork in. There's two sides to this deal. As we all know, there's the equipment side, then there's the bank relationship side. And I think it's really important that, and let me ask you guys, would you agree that a lot of sales is leverage, isn't it?
Yep.
Getting leverage on people.
Yep.
And if you've had someone sell you, when they got leverage on you, go, oh, they talked me into it. They got leverage on me. So what I found is that every time I sit with the customer, I always want to get a little farther. And in this scenario, what we did is he had the advisor send the paperwork in. We got the account boarded. We called the merchant back and said, look, you're approved. You're good to go. What do you want to do? Do you want to buy it or lease it? And there's a little more conversation than that. But the point of this is that because we submitted the paperwork, got it approved, when we called the merchant back, we had leverage. The advisor was just sitting on the paperwork waiting for an answer from the merchant. And if you can't call back and say, hey, you're approved, ready to go, all I need to do is make this decision. If you call back and say, hey, I want to submit this paperwork, what do you want to do? What do you think the merchant's going to do? They're going to drag it on forever. You go, well, I haven't decided yet. Call me next week. You guys ever hear that? Call me next week. Or call me later. I haven't decided yet. But when we called and said you're approved, ready to go, the merchant knew, whether it's conscious or subconsciously, okay, now I have to make a decision because I'm here now.
And they probably already had the decision made, didn't they?
Oh,
really.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure they did. They were leaning one way or another. They just didn't want to pull the trigger yet. But when you have that leverage to go, yep, you're approved, we're ready to go, so did you want to go ahead and I think the language that we use is like, hey, great, got you approved. Did you want to just go ahead and lease that then? And it was like, yeah, let's just go ahead and move forward with the lease, which is, obviously what everybody wants because there's money to be generated. And I think if you break down the sales process and you look at every step of the way, obviously we're getting statements, we're going through paperwork, we're submitting the paperwork, we're getting approved, and so forth. So what we want to make sure we do is that every time I'm sitting with that merchant and having a conversation, I need to just get one step farther. Because sometimes deals, I'll admit, hey, I've been there, done that. It might take a couple days to gel and put together. And another example of this exact same thing is, let's talk about it even before. I had a scenario come up the other day where an agent says, yeah, I got the one partner who's all over it, wants to move forward. I was with that partner, and they said they wanted to talk to their other partner. And I said, okay, so what do we do? And they go, well, I'm going to set an appointment to go back and see them. And I go, oh, okay, well, here's what we want to do next time. Is we got to get leverage. And one of the things that I used to do frequently, and I see a lot of you guys doing it too that have been in the business for a while, is I go, you know what? Oh, I completely understand. Number one is I jump on the same type of fence as them. So they understand that I understand. Yep, I get it. Okay, no problem. But let's do this. I'm sure your partner wouldn't object to saving $80 a month, would he? Well, no, not really. Okay, great. Well, let's do this. Let me just at least go through the paperwork, and then I have it all ready. That way when you talk with your partner and you give me the go-ahead, we're good to go. And, oh, I'm all over it? That sounds great. And what will happen in this scenario is you end up going through the paperwork, and I go through once I have all the information that I need, and I have the one partner sign on it. And a lot of times what happens is they go, you know what, just go ahead and submit it. Let's just go ahead and move forward. I don't go, hey, well, let me set an appointment to come back. I want to get as much leverage as I can. And when I go through the paperwork with them and I get the voided check and I go, great, I mean, you're basically ready to go. I mean, we could, really start saving you money right away. And right then, what I've seen probably 60-70% of the time is the merchant goes, you know what, let's just go ahead and move forward with it. Great. But if I would have said, okay, great, well, why don't I come back next week and talk to both you and your partner, I may never get the other partner. So, because I didn't get any leverage because I don't have the paperwork. And even taking that one step farther, having the paperwork, and he goes, well, let me just hold on and talk to my partner. And then I call back in the next day, and he goes, well, you know what, I still didn't get a chance to talk to my partner, but you know what, let's go ahead and do it anyway. Because you get leverage. And every step of the way you get leverage. You can't let them catch you up in the smaller details. Does that make sense? And can you guys see that in maybe some scenarios that you've been in where you said, oh, okay, well, I'll come back instead of just getting the information on the spot?
Yep, makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Always try to go, you know what, I understand you want to think about this, or I go, let's just at least do this. Let's at least go through the paperwork and get the information ready. That way when you make a decision, all I got to do is you can just shoot me a call and I can pull the trigger for you. And what you'll find, like I said, 60-70% of the time, if you're just going through the paperwork, when it comes to the end, they're going to go, you know what, let's just go ahead and move forward. I've made it this far. Let's just go the whole way. But so you always have to dig, and I know it feels weird. I get it. I feel the same. You know what? I've done it 1,000 times, and it still feels weird to me too. But I like that weirdness because I know what that means. That means I'm going to board a deal here soon. So always go one step. You know what I know you need to think about it. Let me do this. Let me at least get the documentation ready. That way when we're ready to move on it, we can pull the trigger. And sometimes they'll do it, and sometimes they won't. They'll go, no, I don't want to do anything until I think about it. Great. Then we'll figure that out accordingly. But a lot of times they'll go, oh, okay, that's great. So my legal name is this. Here's my information, blah, blah, excuse me, blah, blah, blah. Then at the end they go, you know what, you're right. You know what, let's just go ahead and do it. Anyone ever experienced something similar to that, maybe on the buyer's end and not on the seller's end? Same thing. So always push one step farther. Always push one step farther. So what else we want to do today too, because I know a lot of guys have a lot of stuff cooking, is one, we want to talk about that. Don't get hung up. Always try to get leverage. Move one step forward. But we want to let you guys take the floor a little bit. I know you guys have a lot of stuff cooking. What are some things that are bottlenecking? What are some scenarios that you're struggling with right now that you just need maybe a little workaround, or something that maybe myself or John or Chad or one of our other advisors can offer you guys? What are you bottlenecking on? Nothing? Wow.
Let me throw in one of the here's a real life scenario. It's not really a bottleneck, but when Chuck was going through when he's going through all the stuff that he just talked about and moving forward, one of the things that's really nice is when you use that the merchant tune-up sheet and you get to the end, and like his scenario was, well, I don't know if I want to buy it or lease it today. There's a lot of opportunities. Well, I shouldn't say opportunities. There's a lot of, we'll call it an opportunity. We all know that merchants will need to be able to have different equipment to accept those EMV cards that are coming across our part of the world is changing to. And so now, do they need it right now? No, they don't need it right now, but they're going to need it. So one of the things that you may, and we've got Clover too, so which some merchants are switching to. So we've got Clover, we've got EMV compatible terminals, and we just want to get the merchant on. So there could be a little bit of what Chuck is illustrating with a lot of merchants more these days than there has been in the past. Because when you go back to them and you go, okay, well, you really need that new EMV terminal, and they're going, well, yeah, but I don't know. Do I want that? Do I want to switch to Clover? I'm not sure what I want to do. What that can do, or any scenarios like that, because sometimes you might, before I go off on a tangent, you run into these situations. So what you always want to do is get the deal. We can reprogram their existing equipment now, and then they can decide what they want to get later. It's kind of a similar sort of thing to what Chuck was talking about. Well, should we buy it or lease it? In this scenario that I'm running through, do we use our existing equipment, or do we get a new EMV compatible terminal, or do we switch to Clover? It's like, might be a lot for them to because if you go in with your objective to get the deal today, it might be too much for them to take into consideration for what they might want for a POS system 6 months down the road. But what you always want to do is you always want to get the deal. Reprogram the stuff that they've got now if we're not sure what we want to go switching into, and then a few months down the road, or a month down the road, or whatever, you can still be working in them. Well, what do you want to do? Do you want to just upgrade to your terminal? Do you want to get a different? Always get the deal now. And like Chuck was saying, in the process of getting a deal, just always move forward. You always got to be moving forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes complete sense, and we see that a lot, and that's a great, especially now with all the new equipment coming out. As far as EMV, is they will do that. They go, well, I don't know if I want to buy one or lease one, or do I want the Clover? I just don't know what else. You know what? Because it's not happening tomorrow. EMV is not happening tomorrow. It's happening a few months down the road. So why don't we do this? And this is how I would do it. I go, why don't we do this? Let's just reprogram what you have. We at least know the options that are available. This way you can start saving some revenue, and then you'll have that even more to apply towards your equipment down the road, or whatever the little scenario will be. But don't let those things hang you up, because they will. They will try to use that as an excuse. And if they go, well, I don't know, and they go, well, you did say, right, that putting this $900 a year back into your pocket would be much better than having it go to the bank, right? Right. So let's just do that right away. You know what? 3 months from now, you're going to have $300 towards your new terminal. So let's move forward today. And I remember John used to say, when I first got in the industry, and back then, they were little Trans 330s, Zon Juniors and Trans 330s, and then you'd add a printer later. And a lot of times we'd just get the terminal in initially and say, let it start making you money, and then we'll invest in more equipment.
Right. Yeah, same. It's same idea. And really one of the things I wanted to do back then was leverage. I was going to, if I'm leasing a terminal, let's say for $39.95, I wanted my cost to be as low as possible, so you can make the greatest commission. So at $39.95, would I include the terminal and printer? Well, the printer cost me more money that comes out of commission if I go at $39.95. So it was like trying to, I was strategizing, trying to get the greatest amount of money, make the greatest amount of profit, giving the greatest amount of value. I wasn't going to not get him a printer if he needed one. So, but it's like your strategy going into the deal. You always want to get the deal. You want to make the money. You want to do your best for the merchant. And if you need to get them more different, additional, whatever sort of equipment later, great. But at least you've got the deal. You've got money in your pocket, and we're moving forward.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
You mentioned, and it's actually, I have two questions. The first one is EMV cards and Clover. I have never heard of that. Is there a website I can go to that would give me more information, especially the changes that you were discussing that had to occur? Also, you mentioned reprogram. And when you mentioned reprogram, are you referencing changing their rates?
Well, basically, let me just backtrack, because I'm going to go out on a limb here and say you're new with us, and we appreciate having you. That information we have on the website, your agent director will guide you to it to give you a little better education on that, since you haven't been exposed to it yet. But yeah, that's the process. I mean, basically, when it's kind of like, their terminals they can use with a lot of different banks. So what we do is we just go in and reprogram the terminal with our information in it instead of the bank they were using before, which will give them a better deal. So that's exactly what it means, is we get them on a whole new program. We're just using the same communication piece, which is the terminal they have. And eventually they'll have to upgrade that. And when you go through the stuff online, you'll see what EMV means and what's happening in that arena. So, yeah, a lot of merchants just reprogram what they have. That's the nice thing that we can do now. You know, as of October, if they're not EMV ready, there'll be no reprogramming. They'll have to get a new terminal.
Okay, so let me ask you this. I have one more question.
Oh, that's all right.
So
go ahead.
can you reprogram their program to EMV and Clover? Can you or do they have to get new equipment in order to have that?
Clover is a type of
their
equipment.
system?
Yeah, Clover is a type of equipment. It's a POS. It's a point of sale system. And EMV is you need a specific type of terminal to run EMV cards as of October. So a lot of merchants today don't have equipment that'll even run the EMV cards that have that ability, so they will need to upgrade by October. So
okay,
the
thanks.
yeah, it's equipment issue. Yeah, good question. Thank you. Any other questions?
Now I've got I do have one. This is Bob, and maybe I can get a response from the group. I still seem to be having issues getting through to the decision makers, whether it be by phone or if I make a call. Any suggestions?
Well, I mean, that's such an open question right there because there's no color around it. You know, like, you know, I don't know what you're getting exactly. I mean, getting decision maker, that's always an interesting one.
Yeah, scenario then, of course, I'm working with the optometrist in Mississippi, and I'm continuing to call through to try to reach and talk to either the office manager or the business owner there. But, of course, the doctors are generally seeing people, and of course, you leave messages. I don't get return calls, and I know they're aware of our relationship through the joint venture. Is there anything?
Well, I think
Cam,
you gotta, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I don't. Go ahead, Cam.
Yeah.
Some of these optometrists have days or times of the week where they talk to sales reps. Ask them if they have that kind of thing, and then schedule a meeting with the doctor.
Okay.
Yeah, that one's got to be kind of. It's almost like a little. And Cam, correct me if I'm wrong, because you've done a lot more of these than I have. But excuse me, that's almost like a formal kind of deal. Kind of weird. Like, oh, no problem.
Yeah.
Well, it's almost like you set an appointment to talk to them because they have their blocks of time where they deal with that administrative kind of stuff. So you got to kind of figure out when that is. So that's not a one-call kind of deal. That might take you 3 or 4 calls to even get an appointment. Am I correct, Cam, or am I?
Well, it'll take you. It may take you a couple of telephone calls to get an appointment. But once you get the appointment, you can pretty much get all of their. You can make the sale then, or certainly make it on the next contact. But the good thing about that, though, now the doctor knows who you are, why you're there, and will be more receptive to taking your call.
Right.
Yeah. What's considered too often? I mean, because if I don't reach somebody, say today, then I'll call back Wednesday or Thursday. If I don't reach them then I'll try to call back the following week until I just get tired of burdening them. So is there?
You know, I have a person that a sales rep I was just talking with Friday about this, and she goes, "You'll never." There's a deal we were chasing. It's a lawyer, a law firm, and it's a juicy account. It's a juicy account, and the gal that handles it there is not the decision maker, nor will we get to the decision maker we have to work through her. It's just the way it works there. There's nothing we can do about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And it's also sound familiar. So in the first time we talked to her, this woman, I swear to God, she woke up on the wrong side of the bed the day we talked to her. I was like, I remember hanging up going, holy cow, because I was brought in because there was some funky stuff on it. And this was back in, this was in September. This rep called, she put on her schedule, she goes, you know what, I call every Monday. Every Monday I call this woman, and I leave her a message every Monday. The woman called on Friday and goes, you know what, I am so sorry. We're ready to go now. Can you, the application's outdated. Can you send me a new one? And we'll be boarding that account today. So I think with a deal like that, you know, this woman called every Monday. That was the day. And you ever see the movie? Wall Street with Michael Douglas?
Yeah.
You ever see that? Okay, I mean that's like a sales staple. I mean that's a movie that you got to see. And when Bud Fox first gets a visit with Michael Douglas in the movie, and he goes, I think Michael Douglas says, all right, here's the guy that's called me every week for the last 6 months. Finally gets a meeting. And I think that's the way you approach it. I mean, it takes nothing to reach out on the phone. I mean, when you think about it, you sit down, you plug in, you go, okay, I make my calls on Monday. I'm calling you every Monday. Hey, yeah, and you know what you find with that too? Is the person that keeps taking the message, every time you call, you dig a little farther in with that person taking the message. You dig a little bit farther in. Hey, how you going today? Guess what? Oh, it's Bob again. Hey, Bob, how you doing? Great. How was your weekend? Great. Blah, blah, blah. Somebody must be calling in. And the next thing you know, this person, you've got a relationship with this person. And you're going to go to the doctor at some point and go, you know what? Can you call this guy back? He's been really great about calling and following up. You know, and you can't get, and I'm not saying you do this, I'm just saying this in general. You can't get pissy about it. You just got to go, it is the deal. And if you're super friendly and you're building rapport with the woman that's answering the phone or the guy who answers the phone, even if they're not the decision maker, you know, you're going to get through. You know, it might take 6 months, but so what?
Okay.
So what? You know, it's part of my job. My job is to constantly have creative contact. And every time, you know, and at first they go, oh, I know why you're calling. Oh, yeah, I know. I go, hey, you know what? Don't mistake my passion for being too aggressive. I just know that EMV's coming in October, and I really want to get you guys on the right track. Or, you know, we've got this really good, you know, relationship with the association right now, so we're trying to get you guys aware of what's going on. So, yeah, I'm just leaving my weekly message, and then it becomes almost funny, and the next thing you know, the doctor's calling you.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
No, it makes total sense.
Yeah. You just got to keep after it. You got to be tenacious as hell with some of these people. It's amazing. Good question. I think we all run into that, so that's definitely a good question. Any other questions?
Yeah, I got a real life question.
All right.
I'm working with a customer right now. I've been working with him for probably more than a month.
Yeah.
Got his stuff and got him approved to get like a $200 savings. He's all excited, ready to go. Didn't think it would happen. Got the paperwork sent over to him, and now he's like 2 minutes to fill it. It's at least something, you know, like 5 minutes away from closing this deal. And I mean, we've tried everything.
Right.
My rep came up with this brilliant idea of, you know, wow, we don't want to have to take it back into run underwriting and try to get that approval again, and blah blah blah. And we still didn't get the paperwork sent in.
Right. Well, I think the biggest issue, number one is the only there's very, very few scenarios that I would ever just send the merchant paperwork. That's mistake number one. If this guy's within distance of me, I'm in front of him closing him, and he's signing it right there. And if he's not signing it, he doesn't need to leave. He doesn't need to have me leave the paperwork. That's the biggest mistake, and a lot of agents do it. They go, oh, great. They try to finagle it over the phone, then they send out the paperwork. and then it goes into this paperwork purgatory, and we never see it. So what happens is that when this is why we need to be in front of the merchant as much as possible, especially when it comes time to doing paperwork. Never send it. Because when you send it, do you know what you don't have when you send it? You don't have any leverage. You know, one thing we used to do, make sense?
And you lose all control. You just lose control.
Yeah, you have no control. You're really when you send it, I know by sending off paperwork, I go, you know what? There's a 50-50 chance I'll ever see this again. And then you have to,
exactly the number I was thinking.
Right, and then you have to go, okay, so 50-50. So here I am. I'm standing on the edge of a bridge, and I'm going to jump into the river. And I'm standing there holding on because I want to jump in. It looks like a lot of fun, and it's hot out, and it feels like, man, that river looks nice and cool and refreshing. And if somebody goes, hey, you know, you do realize that if you jump off this bridge, you have a 50-50 chance of living. You may die. 50% of the time you're going to die. 50% of the time you're going to live. Are you going to jump off the bridge? No, those odds aren't good. No, those odds aren't good enough for me. They're not good enough for me. They're not good enough for anybody on this call. So you wouldn't do it. So you go, okay, because that's how you weigh everything. You weigh everything on, okay, what's the upside, what's the potential downside? And for me, if I'm saving a guy $200 a month, that tells me there's probably some money in this deal, right? And we're talking the storage unit guy, right?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, I know exactly who we're talking about, and I know exactly how it laid out. I know the whole deal. And I go, okay, so it's this juicy of a deal, and I'm going to give you what I gave Derek. I go, you're kidding me. And this is almost, I have to tone it down because I don't know who's on this call, so I'm not going to use exactly the words I used with Derek. I go, this deal's worth that much, and you just sent paperwork over? What the blank are you thinking? I go, dude, these guys need to make money out there, and this is the decision that was made on this deal? You're not doing your guy any justice. So you know, now I'm kind of belaboring a little bit, but so number one is 50-50 is not a good enough, that's not good enough odds for me. I don't want to play those odds. I don't want to play luck. I want to play skill. And if I'm in front of the guy and he says, and even when I'm renegotiating it, and I know we renegotiated it, we worked out a little deal for him, and he said he was going to move forward. So here's what happens, is that you go back, you renegotiate with the guy that's never done he hasn't done anything that he said he'd do yet. So you renegotiate over the phone, and you wonder why we still don't have the paperwork? You see the holes in this deal?
Yeah, I see it now. I do. I'll make a point to go out to the office today. That way he can't.
Exactly.
Yep. That leads me to another problem. Then how am I going to handle my Michigan business? Because God knows I ain't driving.
You know what? Here's exactly what I told Derek. I says, you mean he's not writing them while he's there? And he goes, no, he doesn't have time. And I go, well, then understand you got 50-50 then. Mm-hmm. See, you know what my mother told me growing up? She goes, son, remember this in life. She goes, you know what? Screw me once, shame on you. Screw me twice, shame on me.
Well, I'm going to get my restaurant in Michigan. I don't know if you heard about that one yet or not.
I did hear about that one, and I hope we do, and we should get it. You know, because you got a tight relationship there, and I think that's a good deal. But and it's not just you, Dale. I mean, so many people make this mistake, and you know what it is we're easily sold. We're salespeople. We're the most easily sold people on the planet. People sell us. We believe it. And you've heard me say before, if their lips are moving, I think they're lying. You know, it's like no.
Can't come to the phone right now.
Can't come to the phone, but we're here. So always make sure. I never negotiate over the phone. And a merchant will say, oh, hey, you know, send me or how much can you save me? Because I'm calling back. I've just talked to the underwriters. What can you save me? Go, you know what? I really need to walk through this stuff with you. Why don't I do this? I can be over there at 3 or closer to 4. Which one works better for you? And they go, well, just tell me the numbers. If you just tell them the numbers, you're done. You got to get in front of them. You have to make them invest their time with you to get there. Because if they don't invest their time with you to get there, there's no value in it for them. And especially when a guy jerks you around 3 or 4 times, and I would not negotiate with him again over the phone. I would be knocking on his door. Because the first 3 times, he didn't do what he said. So why would he do what he said? Why would I expect him to change on the 4th time?
Well, there you go. I'm just going to drop in on him and say, look, let's get this done. 5 minutes from now, you can be saving $200 a month.
Yeah. And I think with him, I think he's that type. And some merchants are the type that they'll do that constantly until you come in, because they figure, what? Oh, now I'm not good enough for you to come in? Oh, now that you think you got it, I'm not good enough for you to actually come over here and do the deal? You're making me do the work? That's a bad, bad, bad deal. I mean, I never, ever let the merchant even touch the paperwork unless they were touching it to put their signatures on it, period.
So how do you do that? So,
well, one, you got to be in front of it.
Right, exactly. And then when you're filling out the paperwork, how does it flow? Are you filling it out, or do you hand it to them to fill out?
I never, ever. It's a cardinal sin to let the merchant fill out the paperwork. And think about this a second. Think about this a second. You're asking a merchant to fill out paperwork which most likely they've never seen before. So you're making them have to really think about, okay, now what do I, okay, now if things become work for people, they don't want to do it. So what I do is I go, look, I says, great, you know what, Mr. and Mrs. Merchant, all we need to do to get you going on that savings right now is let me grab some real basic company information. Let me get the wheels going for you here. Okay, what's the legal name of the business? And then I go right through the paperwork. And then what I do is after I've completed the paperwork, I put it in the stack. I have it in the flow that you'll get it when you print it. I have it in the flow. And then what I do is I sit with the merchant and I go, okay, I turn the paperwork to the merchant. I hand them a pen. Make sure they have a pen in hand. And then what I do is I go, hey, I'm the worst speller in the world, so just make sure I spelled this correctly. Okay, so it's ABC Incorporated. I didn't know how to spell ABC, by the way. That one I did know how to spell. So I go, okay, so I spelled this correct, and this is the right address, and here's the right contact phone number. Okay, I just need you to initial right here, and I point with my pen. And they go, oh, okay. And then I flip the first one over, and I go, okay, you see right here, this is whatever it is. Okay, I just need you to sign right there. Okay, great. Okay, right here, you see how I told you I was lowering you to the 169 right there. You see how it says 169 in the paperwork right here? Yep, okay, great. I need you to initial here. And then I go right through the process. Never, ever, ever, ever let them write on that paperwork as far as filling it out. Because you want them to go, you know, it's funny. So I had an experience with Dish Network. I was signing up a Dish Network account recently, and when I was going through the process, and the installer came over to install it, and he goes, oh, you can't get this on this type of account. You need to switch it to this type of account. And so I called the salesperson, and they were rolling it all to me. Like I had to do all this extra work to get things squared away. And I says, look, I'm the customer. You know what needs to be done. I need you to do it. You can't have me make 5 more phone calls to get this set up, because guess what I'm not going to do? I'm not going to make those 5 phone calls. I don't have time. You need to take care of everything on your end and then come to me and go, great, we got it squared away. All I need you to do is sign here.
So could I do that same thing on my out-of-town business? Could I, like, fill out the paperwork with them over the phone and then fax it to them for signatures to go over it?
That's exactly what, because they're out of town, yeah, you need to be filling out the paperwork with them over the phone.
Okay, that makes sense, because I got one. By the way, we've done that. We've written thousands of accounts that way, long distance. Go ahead, Chuck.
I'm going to tell. It's funny because we've literally thousands of accounts that way, and here's kind of what we came up with. And is I'd get an account on the phone, and back then we needed wet signatures, so we had to overnight the paperwork to them, okay? And then we'd put an overnight envelope for them to overnight the paperwork back. And what would happen is you'd overnight all these sets of paperwork, and stuff wouldn't come back. So we came up with this idea. It's like, okay, how do we get leverage in this scenario? And one of the things we did is I'd be on the phone with the merchant, and what I do is I'd get all their information over the phone, and I would collect the application fee from them. I would charge everyone an application fee, and it's a little different model, but the concept is still the same. Is I would collect the application from them, so they knew that I was gonna get the application from them, or they paid the application. So I had leverage. So they knew when they got the paperwork, they already paid $90 for the paperwork. And the only way they were getting their $90 back is if I couldn't get them approved. So I had leverage. So when I called the merchant on the phone and say, you know what, you've already paid your $90 application. It looks like things look good at the underwriter, so all I need to do is get the paperwork back. So in their minds they go, you know what, I'm already $90 into it, I got to get the paperwork back. So when you do reprograms, which we do a lot of now, and we go after existing merchants, it's really hard to get leverage like that. So you want to hedge your bet as much as possible and get in front of the merchant, if you can. If you're doing it over the phone, you know, I'd say, look, I've run this by the underwriter. Looks like we're definitely going to be able to get you that deal. But before I send it to them, I don't just send it blind. I call them on the phone, and I almost schedule a meeting with them, and I'll send it when I know they're on the other end and they're ready to deal with it. I won't send it out of the blue. Because see, what a lot of guys do is they send the paperwork out of the blue, and then they try to chase the merchant down, which is backwards. You want to chase the merchant down, get them on the phone, and schedule a time to go through it with them. Go, hey, when can I get like 8 minutes of your time so we can just go through and button this up? And they go, oh, you know what, call me at 3. And then I call them at 3, and what I want them to say to me is, I haven't received the paperwork. Yep, I'm going to send it right now. Are you your computer? Yes, I am. Great, I'll send it. Don't just send it and then try to track them down, because you have no leverage then. If I'm on the phone with them when I send it, I have at least the leverage of the phone call. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense. How do I collect that fee without being there?
Well, you're not going to be able to do it in this scenario. It's not going to work. So you have to do it the phone call. So don't just say, hey, great, I'm going to send over the, you know, when you talk to them and close it and you go through the paperwork, what you want to do before you send the paperwork over to them is get them back on the phone. Okay, because you're going to go through the paperwork and then you're going to put it together. So they're not going to be on the phone while you're putting it together. So you're going to put it together, and before I hang up, go, great, I've got everything I need. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to get the paperwork over to you. Are you going to be available in, like, can we just touch base in 10 minutes? And they go, yeah, sure. Okay, so you'll be at your computer, right? Yep. Okay, great. Then I'll call them in 10 minutes. If I get voicemail, guess what I'm not sending?
Okay.
I'm not sending paperwork. Okay? Do not send paperwork until they're on the phone with you already. And they're on the phone with you already, and they're sitting next to their computer ready to deal with this. Because if you just put it together and then send it to them, and then you try to track them down later, guess who you'll never get?
Man, not another storage place. No.
Yeah, right. That's what you'll get. So it's like, this is what I mean, like when we always talk about you got to keep deals held together. You got to hold them together. But see, guys, and I'm not saying, because I know you and you're not this, so I'm just, so understand, take this in the spirit which it's intended. You can't be lazy in this business. And so many salespeople are lazy. You know, they go, yeah, I talked to the guy. He said he's moving forward, so I just sent him out the paperwork, told him to sign the paperwork and get it back to me. That's your sale? No. All right, you know what I want to do is I want to call you back when you get the paperwork, and we can go through it. Will you have 8 minutes? If I call you in 10 minutes, do you have about 8 minutes to go through this then? Yes, I do. Great. I call you in 10 minutes. Are you at your computer? Yes, I am. Okay, I'm sending it now. Did you get it? Oh, I just got it. All right. You know what? I'll hold while you print it. Okay, great. Hey, just make sure I spelled everything correctly, and you go through it over the phone. Don't just send it off going, hey, yeah, sign by the X's. I'll see you then. Because you know what they're not going to do? Sign by the X's.
Right. Well, I can totally see where I screwed up. I made the big mistake of believing these idiots, and that's why I'm having run around with the storage guy. Thank God he's here in town. Go to him. But I don't want to screw Michigan because I don't feel like getting on a plane tomorrow and driving out there and getting screwed by another rental car company by following and initialing the X's and getting the really expensive insurance. So yeah.
Let me ask you: has everybody here rented a car in their lifetime? Have you guys rented a car? You ever see those car rental agreements? Do they hand you the car rental agreement and say, "Hey, fill this out"?
No, they put a bunch of X's. Initial here, initial here, initial here, and hell, you just bought the $100 a day insurance instead of the $20 a day.
Right, whatever it is. But you notice how they fill it out for you? Because I don't know, man. You look at these car agreements and go, number one, I can't see. I'm blind as a bat, so I can't even read half the crap on there. And number two, I don't even know the flow of this thing. I don't even know. So why are we doing that with the merchant? Make it easy for them. But does that make sense on if you get cornered in a situation where you have to send the paperwork off to them? Does it make sense to set a meeting and only send it to them when you're on the phone with them?
Absolutely.
Okay, because if you don't do it that way and you just send it to them blind, they have a pretty powerful information to shop you against someone else.
It's also just really inconvenient for the person. It's the time that it takes to figure out the paperwork. And I don't know how other people operate. This is John Lyson. Like Chuck was saying with the Dish Network scenario, it's like I won't, if somebody just sends me paperwork, in fact, I've gotten to the point now where if I'm going to do something with somebody, I go, just make sure that it's filled out, and I'll swing by and sign it or come by and sign it. But I don't fill out paperwork. I won't do it because I don't have the time to figure out what's supposed to go in all these boxes. And if you've done our paperwork any number of times, you know that it covers a lot of scenarios, and some of the boxes, just big chunks of them, are just not even applicable for different merchants. So how do they know even what to put or not put? It's frustrating. I would think it would be horribly frustrating if somebody sent me merchant paperwork and I'd never gone through it before. I wouldn't fill it out either.
Well, I would know, like 90% of the stuff isn't applicable to them, but yet they've got to read through it.
And understand it.
Yeah,
put in the right information.
Yeah, it's like you're making me read through this, understand it, and then just, okay, so do I put something here or don't I? You know what? Don't make them work so hard at it. You want them to feel like, God, this was such an easy process with this sales rep. They took care of everything for me. And we've all had scenarios like that where you go, man, it was so simple how this guy took care of me. Man, that's who I want to do business. It's not the one that makes me think through all this stuff. I don't have time to think through it, or the energy, or maybe I just don't even have the knowledge, which is probably most likely in my scenario. So step up to that next level. And hold your business together. Always hold your business together, because if you hold it together, you're going to close twice the business that you do. It's just the way the world works. So awesome question. And I know I went off on it, but was that stuff helpful?
It was very helpful. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Don't be too hard. So he really does try hard.
Well, you know what? I was going to say something, and I'm kidding when I say this. I can try all I want, but I'll never be a point guard in the NBA. No, I'm kidding. No, Derek does. Derek works hard. So, but we want to make sure we're giving you guys all those. Because see, it's funny. Is John and I were having a meeting this morning. We were talking about some different marketing companies and some marketing guys, and there's probably a lot of different ways to market out there and be successful, and there's a lot of tricks to the trade. But one thing that you can't overlook is the I call it handling people. I look at it almost like being a zookeeper. If you're a zookeeper, you probably know how to handle all kinds of animals. You know how to handle an elephant. You know how to handle a rhinoceros, a giraffe, an ostrich, emu, whatever. The same thing applies here. We're like zookeepers. We just need to know how to handle all these different types of animals. You got to be cognizant of that and go, okay, here's how this thing could get wobbly if I don't hold it together. Take the extra energy and the extra step to hold it together. Don't let it get wobbly on you, because then, Dale, man, I heard the frustration in your voice when you're describing that storage guy, and I'm frustrated too. But I
just
know
want to.
you would be in a different situation. You'd be in a whole different situation right now if you handled it differently from square one.
Exactly, and that's why I was asking. I just wanted to find out where I screwed up, because if I'm in control of this situation, it had to be a mistake on my side of the table, and I don't want to repeat it. So that's why I want to find out. And truth be said, I really do appreciate Derek. That man gives me a lot of help, a lot of encouragement. I mean, he got some pretty flip.
So I don't know whatever he paid you to say no, but you know what, Derek, we feel the same way, man. I appreciate what you bring to the table, and I see what you're doing out there, and I see that you're really in a position, knowing history and knowing where you're at, knowing what you have in the pipeline. You do a couple things right, just 2-3 things right from here on out, you're going to make a ton of money in this business. It's just a couple little things. That was one of them we touched base on today, so hopefully we can make that change.
I hope so, and I do appreciate you guys' help.
Yeah, you too, man. I appreciate it. All right, guys, before we go, is there any other pressing things that you want to address, or questions, comments, anything? No?
No, thanks, Chuck.
All right. You know what? Thank you, everybody. We appreciate it. We'll see you guys next week. Let's have a great week. We're rapidly approaching the end of the month. Let's make the most out of it, okay?